A leading scientific advisor has suggested that people who have been double vaccinated could face fewer restrictions. Dr. Susan Hopkins of Public Health England told the BBC that might include the possibility of them not having to self-isolate or quarantine. Ministers are aiming to have 2/3 of the adult population double jabbed by the new unlocking date of July the 19th. Here's our health correspondent, Anna Collinson.
All adults in England can now receive a coronavirus vaccine and demand is high. NHS England says more than 700,000 appointments were booked on the first day over 18s became eligible. Over the weekend, football stadiums, including here in Tottenham, have transformed into large vaccination centres. And these long queues of people will be a heartwarming sight for health officials who say the more people who are jabbed, the sooner our freedom can return. Ben, you're 18 and you've travelled over an hour to be here today.
Yes.
Why?
Because getting vaccinated is so important. I mean, it will reduce hospital admissions and it will make me a lot happier to see my parents.
Especially with going to university in September, we're hoping that we can have a normal life.
I'm expecting that by the end of the year, for people who are vaccinated, borders will be it'll be easier to cross borders. So I'll be able to go back to India, meet my parents, go back to Singapore, meet my friends.
All adults in Wales and Northern Ireland can also book a vaccine. So can over 18s in Glasgow. But for the rest of Scotland, people need to be over 30. This comes as a trial is looking to see if people who are fully vaccinated can avoid self-isolating if a close contact tests positive. They would instead take daily tests.
We are moving steps forward, and I think that in the time in the future, I'm not sure when, but a time in the future, I can imagine a situation where we will have alternatives to isolation for people who have 2 doses of vaccine.
Alternatives to isolation could also open up foreign travel, which would help the UK's struggling aviation industry. Ministers say they're trying to be as flexible as possible.
Well, of course, there's frustration. All of us want to have a holiday in the sun wherever possible, but we're right as well to balance that with the need to control variants of concern.
Scientists advise we should holiday at home this summer, but from tomorrow, the Scottish Government is introducing a travel ban to and from parts of Greater Manchester, amid concerns about high infection rates, a move that's angered the Mayor.
I'll be writing to the First Minister today. I'll be asking for compensation for the individuals who might lose holidays and the businesses who might lose bookings. You know, why should a couple from Salford who are double jabbed, who are about to go on a walking holiday in Scotland, not be able to go? It's completely disproportionate.
This pop-up vaccination site in Halifax is hoping to curb rising cases.
Are you allergic to anything?
So far, 59% of adults have received 2 doses. The government wants this to have risen beyond 66% by July 19th, in the hope complete unlocking can follow. Anna Collinson, BBC News.
Our political correspondent Damien Grammaticus explains that as more of us get the second jab, the calls to ease restrictions are likely to grow.
You heard Andy Burnham say it there. We know MPs have been saying it. We know people at home are thinking that. They've been double vaccinated. Can they have more latitude to do things? And we know, too, that the government is looking at this. It is interested. So there is that study that's now happening to see whether people who are double vaccinated might not need to do quarantine or isolation if they've come into contact with someone who has COVID or symptoms. We know, too, that they are looking and will look at countries like Israel to see whether travel can be opened up a bit more because of that. But remember, the key thing here is the first thing is the level of the number of people who've been double vaccinated. And that's why those restrictions the easing of restrictions was pushed back already. That number needs to go up. They need to see the results of those studies to see whether double vaccination reduces the risks of transmission, work out how to do this at borders. There's a lot of detail to be worked through, so this isn't going to happen soon. But it is all about, when we get beyond the restrictions, how we live with the virus and what measures we still need in place.
Damien Grammaticus. Well, we can speak now to Dr. Bharat Pankhania, a senior clinical lecturer at the University of Exeter Medical School. He's also a Liberal Democrat councillor in Somerset. Dr. Pankhania, thank you very much for joining us. What's your view of this approach that's being taken, somewhat cautious, it has to be said, by Dr. Susan Hopkins about how double doses might free us to do more things?
I would agree with Dr. Susan Hopkins. The United States has already started to adopt that strategy. So what we are saying is once you are fully immunized, i.e. your 2 vaccines, you are as well protected as will be. The key item is that we need many more people to also be in that cohort of fully immunized. And when we get to that stage, I think it will be safer for us to allow people who are fully immunized to resume more social activities.
But we keep hearing about the strength and the transmissibility of certain strains, particularly the Delta variant, which is causing so many problems here at the moment. Won't what you're suggesting have to be caveated depending on the variant we're dealing with?
Well, the good news about the Delta variant is that it is not more disease causing and it is not bypassing the vaccines. The bad news is that it is more infectious. Therefore, what we've got to do is immunize as many people as possible and get them over the line into the immune status. That will help us. If, on the other hand, the Delta variant were more disease causing or it was bypassing the vaccines, then I would say we have a problem. We've got to continue with restrictions. And one more thing, which is really also important, is that people who are fully immunized are less infectious. So another reason to immunize, for example, people in schools, colleges, etc., where transmission starts and kicks off and then it takes off, that we really need to immunize this younger age group very fast.
How much younger? Because some people have expressed concern, even alarm at the idea of vaccinating very young children who really aren't at risk, generally speaking, of COVID-19.
Caution, caution, caution. We need not to be asleep. So I would immunize. It has been licensed for 12 and above. And remember, a variant can arrive at any time. And a variant that causes severe disease in young children could be very harmful. Furthermore, young children who do get infected, and they do get infected, also some of them go on to develop long COVID-like symptoms. Therefore, what is the best protection we've got? Immunization. Immunization will also allow schools to function better rather than the current stop-start that we've got. So I would say, as it has been licensed for 12 and above, please do so. It will really make a big difference.
But you're not suggesting that children under 12 would also have to be vaccinated?
Well, at the moment, the licensing hasn't been granted for under 12, so I can't say. But say if it were, there is no reason not to. Because remember, we immunize our children against mumps, measles, etc. And look at the difference it makes. It prevents a lot of ill health and a lot of diseases. It's the same thing over here. It is prevention, protection. That is a much better strategy than continuous shutdown, continuous contact tracing, continuous restriction of movements.
Dr. Bharat Pankania from the University of Exeter, good to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.